Hello, everybody. We're so excited to bring this video to you. And today I've got two superstars with me, Joel Love and Professor Zach Shemon, my great colleague here at the Conservatory. And Joel's coming to us from Texas as we speak. And we've in the last year and a half recorded Joel's Solace for saxophone, saxophone soloist and wind ensemble. And we are so excited to be releasing it on February 5th. And we just wanted to put a video together for anyone interested in the piece to help you learn a little bit more about it and to maybe know what kind of things you need to be thinking about before programming it or just increasing your familiarity with a piece that I enjoyed very much, and I know Professor Sheeman did as well. I've actually conducted it twice, once at the Interlochen Summer Arts Camp, and then also at the Conservatory where we made the recording here in Kansas City. So I'm going to first turn this over to Joel and ask him why the piece and how it came about and what he was trying to convey and get across in writing it. And Joel, it's all yours. Tell us about the piece and why.
I've written a bunch of stuff for saxophones. The first thing I wrote really of any uh, kind of bigness or whatever was a saxophone quartet that I'm thankful has been played quite a bit called In Memoriam. It was written for in memory of my father, and then I wrote an octet that was premiered at a NASA conference. That's right, NASA, like to the moon. No, it's a North American Saxophone Alliance, and some really key saxophonists in the community heard that piece. Deborah Rickmeyer and Connie Frigo, and then Connie Frigo did me a huge solid and really just kind of like asked a whole bunch of conductors and across the country and saxophonists if they'd get in on writing a concerto or commissioning a concerto, me to write a concerto. And then that was, I guess, in 2016 or so. And then I finished the piece like December 2017, January 2018. And the reason she commissioned me is that she is really Connie really is the one who kind of led it, and she's really attracted to, music that's really transcendent, is kind of beautiful, and that's just what she really really loves to play, and so she wanted me to write a more lyrical saxophone concerto for the instrument, and that's really the way it came about. And then I spent the next X number of months writing it, and here we are. And now it's been played, I'm just 30 times, something like that. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to write it, and y'all did a great job, and I'm glad to be a part of the project. Really.
Hey, awesome, Joel. So, can you talk to us a little bit about each movement, just briefly, a little bit the story behind it, or if there is one? If there isn't one, I know the answers, but just you tell us your perspective.
We had a bunch of conversations, Connie Frigo and I, the woman who spearheaded the consortium, about bunch of different texts. I presented some texts. She presented this book called Consolations by David White. And we kind of settled on a few that we both found really interesting. And to be honest, some of those movements started out as being sort of inspired by those texts in some way, and some kind of organically, as I started to write, kind of became like we found texts that sort of mirrored some of the language of some of the pieces. But the first movement is called Joy, and it is, as you would imagine, about joy. What I tried to do with that piece was kind of I wanted to challenge some aspect of saxophone playing with each movement. Okay, and the first one challenges their ability to sort of play over mixed meter in this sort of unwieldy way, as it were, but yet maintain some semblance of accessibility and centricity and tonal stuff and high rhythmic energy, which is a lot of stuff that I like to do in my music. The second movement is basically about like the gnashing of teeth and angst and all these wonderful things that happen. It's called Besieged, and with this movement, I really just wanted to challenge the saxophonist to play these lyrical lines. Really, the second and third movement are kind of the heart of the concerto in terms of just this lyricism that I really wanted to say. But I had this quasi sort of jazz thing going on in the second movement, and just challenging playing over all these different sort of subtle lines. And then also, there's a quasi improvisatory section in the second movement that's kind of alongside the jazz language. The third movement is called Gratitude, and it's really the heart of the concerto. I really just wanted the saxophonist to play as beautifully as possible in that movement. The fourth movement is called Hiding, and this is the movement where I challenge the saxophonist to play in like the most noir sort of jazz kind of funk way that I could muster, and that's definitely what ends up happening. And then finally, the last movement is Work, and it is just that. It's a bunch of work, just kind of a constant sort of really difficult piece of music to just kind of barn burn and finish up the concerto, because that's what it is. It's a concerto. Even though it's lyric, I definitely wanted to challenge the instrument in every way I could possible. And so that's really where the genesis of the piece comes from.
Hey, Professor Shemon, talk to us about what was so wonderful in your preparation on those five movements that Joel just shared with us.
Well, the thing I love about Joel's music is just how idiomatic it is. And it was really obvious working on this piece that he's written for the instrument before. So as you mentioned, his quartet has gotten a lot of play, and his octet, and even your old solo piece. I don't know if you know how much play that's gotten, but the students here play all of your music. And I think the experience of writing for the instrument, every piece is better than the previous one. And it was just fun to work on because it falls on the instrument so well. And the thing that allows, I think, in Joel's music is it allows the performers to think about other things other than technique. And that's the other thing I like about his music, is it's so deeply expressive. It's the combination of those two things, I think, where it's idiomatic, so you can get it off the page easily, and then you can go deep with some of the expressive qualities of the music. And each movement is, it encapsulates, or it captures a deep emotion or some idea. And sometimes, musicians, we spend a lot of time by ourselves in rooms practicing, and we're not always the best at expressing emotion, whether it's through words or other means. But I'm really grateful to have music like this, where we can express some of these ideas that either we can't put into words, or we just have a hard time expressing in day-to-day life. And that's really the big takeaway from this whole experience of performing your piece and recording it. It was just a memorable moment, being able to perform your piece twice, but then also now to be able to record it and share it with the world, and just hoping that those who are able to experience the piece through the recording get a little slice of what we were able to experience performing your piece.
Joel, why saxophone? How'd this saxophone thing happen?
It's a good question. So he mentioned that solo piece that I wrote called Liberation, and one of my first girlfriends who helped me get away from a toxic relationship. It's random, but so I wrote the piece for her, and I called it Liberation because I wanted to get out of that. She helped me get out of that relationship. Didn't last very long, but yeah, I wrote that, I guess, like in 2006 or so. And then a buddy of mine at the University of Houston, who was an undergraduate named Bob Eason, played that piece and recorded it kind of the first time in a recording session. And then, sort of nothing happened with saxophone for a while after that. And then years later, Bob went to the Indiana University and formed a quartet called the Kenari Quartet, who, they've won, I think, Fischoff twice, the silver medal twice in Fischoff, and all kinds of other. They're really, really wonderful musicians. Very expressive quartet. One of the best, playing these days. And they got together and they listened to my string quartets. I have two of those, and they asked me to write a saxophone, that in memoriam saxophone quartet. And I wrote that one, and the rest is kind of it. The octet is Kenari and this other quartet named Barkada, who also kind of Indiana University students. They got together and they asked me to write that octet, And so, yeah, it's just been sort of a steady stream of other saxophonists who have very thankfully wanted more music from me. I think it's actually, I think it's kind of an untapped instrument with the music that I like to write, which is this sort of more, again, more idiomatic, sort of, as Zach put it, kind of more idiomatic, expressive music. Not to say that it doesn't exist. There's good music, obviously, for the saxophone, but I think there's more to be written.
That's awesome. I don't know if you knew this, Joel, but actually grew up a saxophonist.
I didn't know that.
So, and then of course, Professor Shemon is a saxophonist, as he can tell, and he's the only person that would say this piece is idiomatic with all that altissimo that's written out of. And I don't know if that's as easy as it wants to be for many players, but it is for Professor Shemon. You want to talk about that altissimo in this, how it's used in this piece, Zach?
Well, I think that's, like I said, where the craft of a composer comes into play, where Joel really threaded the needle of writing some stuff that is virtuosic and impressive sounding, but it's all doable. And that's a conversation we had when I was working on it. He was really concerned about, is this all playable? Is anything impossible? And even the hardest lick in the piece is still possible.
He's the wrong person to ask that question to, Joel.
Right.
Because everything's possible with him.
That's not always true.
Hey, so I wanted to also mention the ensemble really enjoyed playing this. So if you're a conductor out there watching this, I think the piece is accessible to the ears, but challenging to the mind. And it really enjoyed the juxtaposition of a reminiscent familiarity throughout each movement. It just seems right. It feels right. It resonates with our 21st century musical modality in our brains. But it also, I think the underlying intellectualism in this piece is really balanced well with the heart. And I don't find that all the time. So it's a piece that I think audience members will be. Actually, I brought some friends to the concert that we did at the Kaufman Center with Professor Shemon that were non-musicians, and just some friends that I had in the business world. And they came, about 10 or 12 of them came to the concert, and they were mesmerized and blown away by the piece. It was their favorite piece on the concert, to be honest. And they were really excited about it. And I happened to give those 4 or 5 people a CD yesterday, and their eyes lit up about how much they remembered it and how positive it was and how meaningful it was. I say that because in the wind ensemble world, it's not always, some of our music doesn't touch people the way I would love for it to. And I think this piece actually does. But I think to say it's an easy piece is not true. It's a lot of work for the ensemble. Some of the subdivisions over 8 are tricky to get to lay right on the instruments and to feel with the metaphor or the adjective or the adverb that you want to, the emotion to come across. It was challenging, but we did it. We accomplished it. And we worked hard at it, and I think it was rewarding. Sometimes pieces are harder than they're worth. This piece is not harder than it's worth. It is really a wonderful opportunity for students to grow, and I think they'll love it. And I know your audience will love it. And it's also a piece you can program on the most sophisticated concerts and outreach concerts for whomever you want, because it really does resonate with everybody that watches and listens to it. So we loved it,
well,
and
I
hope you'll love it too. And Joel, I want to get another piece from you. I want to figure out how to do this, and we will. Probably not with saxophone again, but maybe something else, even though I love the saxophone. We can call it Solace too, or something. But anything else you all want to mention to us about this? And I have to say before, and I can't believe I didn't start with this. I'm a pathetic soul. But the students at the conservatory are stunningly great people. I'm thankful for their efforts and their integrity and their discipline and their inspiration to all of us every single day. So students at the conservatory, if you're watching this, obviously this project could not have happened without your amazing dedication and discipline and care. And that's one of the great reasons I love to teach here at the Conservatory in Kansas City, because I hope the whole environment embraces all of those ideals. And I actually live it with you, so I know that it does. And I'm really humbled and thankful for that, to be in that kind of environment. So I hope you'll love it. I hope if you do this piece, I hope you'll do the piece first of all. So if you're watching this, and I hope that you'll really enjoy it. And if you can't play the whole thing, play a movement. Some of the movements aren't as hard as others. Let's get this piece going, and it's already, as Joel mentioned, about 30 performances. Let's get it at 330 performances. I think that would be just amazing. Joel, Zach, any final words from you all about this?
I wanted to say thank you again. I'm going to echo your sort of thanks to your students, that just wonderful, wonderful players in the ensemble. Really outstanding work. Really, really, horns. Just really everybody, top to bottom, just did a wonderful, wonderful job. I was just blown away when I first heard it in September. And so it was a real joy to get to work with everyone on, sort of fine tuning those details. And I also wanted to comment and say I'm so heartened to hear that you think that the piece was sort of a good intellectual exercise, but at the same time was accessible. And so I always say this, and I'm not always popular for it, but I really do believe that all music should be a sort of triple relationship. The composer should be satisfied, the performer should be satisfied, and I think the audience should be satisfied. And I don't think I think the most successful pieces fulfill all three. And so thank you for saying that. It really meant a lot to me.
It's true, Joel. Zach, anything you want to mention, add?
I don't think so. I think you nailed it, Joel. I think you satisfied us as performers, and I hope you're satisfied as a composer. And we're, like I said, just really happy to share this recording now with a much wider audience.
We hope you enjoyed this video today on Joel's piece with Professor Shemon. Thanks again, and we hope everybody has a great remainder to your day.